Hi, everyone, and welcome to another interview in this series of interviews with inspiring people that I am super grateful for their time on these interviews. And today I am very grateful and very excited to introduce you to one of my spiritual coaches, Cynthia Larson. Very warm welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you, Michaela. Such a pleasure to be talking with you today.
Thank you so very much. You know, when I was thinking about how to introduce you to our audience, I actually don't know, because your scale of things, you cover so many things, from quantum physics to quantum biology to quantum jumps, Mandela effect, positive psychology, spirituality, all that stuff. So I'm actually going to pass over to you in a second and ask you to introduce yourself and show what do you consider yourself to be. But what I would like to tell our audience is why was I actually drawn to you and why I asked for your support as my teacher. And that was when I saw the first time an interview with you, which was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when I first saw you on Gaia TV. And as soon as I saw that first interview, I went and binged everything that I could find, every interview with you. And what I was particularly drawn to at the time was you were talking about quantum physics. Obviously, we were talking about energy and creating results and creating our life through energy. And at that time, I was already following Dr. Joe Dispenza, so I was kind of familiar with quantum physics and kind of, creating results through that kind of work. But then when I saw you, it really kind of hit home. And I was like, I would love to work with this lady, because as a good, proper high achiever, all my life I've been driving and pushing and striving and all that stuff. And then I got, okay, there is a better way of how we can actually align the energy, the energy works for us. So that was the reason why I reached out to you. And then we started working together a few months ago, and we kind of slipped into the realm of spirituality, where we are now working in the spiritual kind of topics, and we are exploring together. And people could ask, like, how does science and spirituality merge together? And it very much does. And I'm sure we will talk about it on the interview today. But with that, I will pass over to you and I will ask you, could you introduce yourself to our audience? Who are you?
Yes, well, I'm a author. I'm a life coach, and I call myself either an intuitive or a spiritual life coach. And I've been doing that for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Back when there weren't any others. You might think there weren't any. Oh, yes, the internet was new. And so I was looking to see, what do I call myself? There must be some others. There really weren't. So I was like the first spiritual life coach that was putting that shingle out there. My background is in science. I have a degree in physics from UC Berkeley, and I've also helped coordinate conferences on consciousness with the Foundations of Mind, where I've been just a founding member and organizer of these conferences, presented papers there myself with other scientists like George Weissman, a physicist who was featured in the book How the Hippies Saved Physics. So I am aligned with other quantum physicists who understand that there's something deeper than just shut up and calculate to quantum physics, that there's something that it's showing us something deeper about reality. And that's really what I've been dedicating my whole life to. And rather than playing with it, like, let's just get what we think we want and get some short-sighted, short-term results, that's why spirituality comes into it for me. I look deeper to see how can we do things so it's best for all concerned. And when we do it that way, it's a whole different thing. It's not selfish, short-term, short-sighted, dead-end solutions that aren't really solutions at all, that end up being problems. And that's true on the individual level, in the group level, the corporate level, the world level, on every level. So that's in a nutshell. There's a lot more, but
there's a lot more. Yeah. Well, talking about you just mentioned corporate world. Well, you used to be in corporate world, and you were quite high up in corporate world, from what I understand. And you were kind of on your way to really, on your trajectory to climb the ladder. So what happened?
You just question, Michaela. Yeah, you just go right for it. Yeah. What happened? Oh man. Well, I was doing, like you said, I was well recognized. My intuitive skills were top notch, as they had been all my life. That is rewarded in the corporate world big time. So anybody who's in the corporate world knows that already. Might be frustrating if you don't feel like your intuition is clicked in and you feel like, how come I don't know what's going on? Everyone can develop it, but I had very developed intuitive abilities, which was recognized. It looked on paper like I was doing the work of maybe 10 or 15 people. I credit that almost entirely to intuitive abilities, because at a glance, I would quickly know. I'd be given lots of projects to manage. I was a project manager at a data center for Citibank. So I was definitely involved with strategic planning for the entire California, all of California, basically. I was the one person picked to help do the strategic planning for the information technology areas. And so that was what I was doing in the 1980s. And I was being fast tracked for vice president, and just they had a big plan for me. However, you're wondering what happened. Well, I felt constrained. I felt there was a sense within me that this is not what I was meant to do, that there was something more important for me. And I could feel it. I felt like, as good as I was at doing that, and everybody would inevitably say, you're the best person for this job, that job, the other. I almost got tired of hearing it. And I'm not being egotistical to say that. I'm just saying this is what was happening because of the intuition, really. If you wonder what's going on, that was going on. So I could tell this is a dead project. These people are not doing anything. These ones will. I was doing matrix management. That means I had people working for me that I did not pay, that I do not give reviews to. And so I was very good at that. I had some good cross skills that were good in that crazy ready, fire, aim environment that was Citibank in the 1980s. But for me personally, I started feeling that this was like a gilded cage, golden handcuffs. I wanted to feel more of a resonance within myself. And I started getting some really powerful personal spiritual experiences. There's no other word for it, just where I started feeling that there's something so much more that I was being called to do, and I needed to wake up and get going with that. That's the nutshell, short version.
Yeah, thank you for that. So talking about intuitive abilities and intuitive skills, maybe just for our audience, because maybe people that are watching this, they are just really used to being driven by logic and mind and brain, and even though we often say, well, I've got a gut feeling, but we very quickly override it with our logical thinking, right? Could you talk a little bit into those intuitive abilities or skills, and does everybody have intuitive skills, and how do we find out that we have intuitive skills?
Absolutely.
What does it mean?
Yeah, it's completely normal. We all have it. We might think of it like left brain, right brain. And my left brain is the analytical side, because I'm right-handed. And so then I'm putting it in these simple terms that people can feel like, oh yeah, we all have two hemispheres in the brain. We have two hands. We can do this. That's right. So it's intuition, which means it's the complement to analytical, rational thinking. And the worldview that we get from intuitive thinking is very different. It's very holistic. It's very entangled. There's an understanding that there's a cooperation happening that's so deep and so profound, and that you can respect others, even if they are supposedly your competitor, or they might be your level and they're competing for promotion or what have you. But if you can see them on a collaborative level, then you're really implementing this relaxed, because relaxation is part of the intuition. It doesn't work. It can work when you're stressed, but that's different. So for people just to become comfortable with intuition, it's good to know we're using it all the time. It's how you can sense if the phone rings, should you pick it up or not? If you have that feeling like, ooh, I shouldn't have picked it up. Right, just don't pick it up. You're not there. There's a reason for that. And sometimes people get curious, why do I feel that? And then they pick the phone up. Ooh, shoot. This is embarrassing. I didn't want to talk to that person right now. It would be better to talk to them in an hour from now when I'll have more information or whatever. So you really want to start listening and playing those little games, like, should I pick this phone up, or am I just walking to get coffee? I'm walking to get coffee right now. Okay, fine. Or I need to get this call, or I'm going to get a call. I'll just sit here at my desk for no reason because I feel like I'm going to get a call. So you can play with your intuition. Nobody else has to know. And you can start developing it, just like doing push-ups and getting stronger. And what starts happening is that then anybody can get to a better and better levels of trusting the intuitive information that comes through, this knowingness from interconnectedness. And we all have access to it. So it's very much part of being human.
Yeah, absolutely. So would you say that our intuition is most of the time right? Is it always right?
Well, there's a good question. Some people, and I hear from this quite often from people who say my intuition's terrible. It's like I get a feeling and it's just the wrong thing. Like I invest in the wrong things, I trust the wrong people, I hire the wrong people. Okay, fine, I get it. That's a pattern that they're in at the moment. And the way I see it, and when I work with clients, then we can work through patterns and go underneath them, go to see what is shaping that pattern, and is it a self-destructive, self-sabotaging pattern? The ones I'm describing certainly are. And then you can find some core beliefs that are operating at a very subconscious level that you might not be aware of, and start doing some work to clear them, and start finally experiencing that you can trust your intuition as you're meant to do. We're meant to be able to walk without falling down. Walking is controlled falling, and so trusting intuition is just learning to trust that process, that it feels scary. You're saying something, you don't know why you're saying it. You're doing something, you have no idea why. And then you find out, oh, that was safe. And that was a good choice, good choice. And then everybody can definitely develop this and go from wherever you are to someplace better.
Yeah. From, my own experience, because I've worked in the corporate world all my life until January when I left on my independent journey. And intuition still, obviously, it's changing, and I see it changing, but still intuition is such an underrated skill, or the decision center that we basically use, just because we are so driven by the logical mind. But as you say, like, if for people that are maybe driven by the logical mind, as you just said, it's kind of going beyond that logical mind and understanding where are those decisions coming from, the beliefs that are stored in the subconscious that are very often just driving our patterns and our behavior. And once we go beyond that, just trusting that gut feeling, I think in a just really simplest terms for people that are not familiar with going and doing this work, just that gut feeling, it's something to really trust, because that's such an important decision center for our lives, not just our minds. Our minds are very important, but that gut feeling, it offers a very different quality of decisions. And I just wish that we were taught this when we were small. I was not, definitely. So it took me over 45 years until I started realizing, and over the last few years started using my intuition really as a really important decision center, which helped me to make loads of decisions that were very conflicting from my mind, in a complete opposite. And then we go into that trust word, as you said, and this is what you and I have been working on as well, as coming basically into the complete trust of that intuition, and play with it so that we can see what happens.
Yes, exactly. And it's nice, of course, if you have the role model in your life. My mother was very intuitive, so I could witness firsthand. She would say something that came out of nowhere, like, I think we should maybe not do this activity today. And then my father was very rational, an engineer, civil engineer, very analytical, and he'd say, this is the best way to, he would press forward, like, let's do it that way. And then come to find out, the intuitive take that my mother had was completely correct. And sometimes I started looking at these things like, this is so interesting to have two parents that were so different, and be able to see intuition can sometimes be correct with no, you can question it, and then it has nothing to stand on, usually. So my mother, we've questioned, why do you say that? I don't know, I have no idea.
I just know.
Yeah, right. And we'd go traveling, and she'd know where to go. It's like, we're lost, and she'd say, let's go this way, and it was exactly right. And what time is it? Like, nobody had a clock that was correct before cell phones, and she knew exactly what time it was. And because I grew up with that, I was able to see that really works. I can trust that. And so I would lean into that intuitive gut feeling way of living. And the more, like you said, if we have examples, it's so good, because then you can start to see it. And it can be scary if you're making a big switch. However, like what I told you is absolutely correct. I was a superstar in the corporate world precisely because I was trusting intuition to such a refined degree, because when you start getting really good at it, then it really did look like my to-do list was huge, and I was accomplishing a huge percentage of an impossible to-do list, because I would allocate my resources of myself, my time, my effort, my team's time and effort and resources. I would tell everyone, let's focus on these the living projects that were lit up and glowed that felt like these ones are going, let's go. And the ones that felt like they're dead, I'm like, don't worry about that. Like you can just say like you looked at the papers, but obviously that one's going nowhere. And I had no way to know that, but it's intuition.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit now about quantum physics in simple terms, really, really simple terms. It's obviously all about energy. We are all energy. Everything is energy. But can you just tell our audience who maybe have never heard that term or don't really understand, or maybe they heard it, but they don't quite get it. What does it mean? Why do they keep hearing it lately? Because over the last few years, we hear more and more about quantum physics. So can you just maybe talk a little bit into quantum physics? How is it different from maybe Newtonian, the classic physics that we all learned at school? What is the difference, and what are we talking about?
Well, if you took, some people don't even take physics in school, but if they did, you're right, they would tend to be familiar with Newtonian physics, where an apple falls, there's a gravitational force, and there's a relationship between force and mass and acceleration, for example. So we know, we sort of feel like, okay, I've seen equations. Einstein has E equals mc squared. These are famous equations. People generally feel like, okay, I don't know what it means or how to apply it, but I've seen it. Good. Yeah. And then the reason we keep seeing quantum physics now is because we are leaving kind of, it's like we moved out of the Stone Age, then we moved into using tools with bronze and so forth. And then the tools and the information just kept moving into more refined things. So with Newtonian physics, we got things like automobiles and airplanes. Now we're moving into quantum physics. It's affecting our technology. It's in our cell phones. It's in the internet. It's in computers, and it's in the atomic power that we benefit from. All of these things are very quantum. And quantum, the word quanta just means an indivisible something. So it's like something that you can't split it apart. That was the idea. And that was the original concept when the term came into being around the year 1900 of what are the building blocks of matter. And so the idea was to look to see what's inside of a molecule, where we've got a molecule of something like H2O is a molecule, it's water. And within molecule of water, you've got hydrogen and oxygen. You've got 2 hydrogens for every oxygen. And then they thought, okay, well, let's look inside one of those. What's inside the hydrogen? So they look inside the hydrogen and they say, oh my goodness, it looks like a little solar system. It's got a nucleus, it's got electrons, well, 1 electron flying around like a little planet, and it's got a proton and a neutron. And then they thought, okay, what's inside the electron? And that's where they got to, that's a quantum particle. An electron is a quanta. It's like you can't take it any smaller than an electron. Same thing with a photon. And where it gets weird and wild and woolly and wonderful is that the more they started looking at, like, let's take a look at what do these things do? They devised experiments, the physicists did, such as the double slit experiment, to see how does the behavior get affected when you're observing it, and what happens. Are these particles really particles, or are they waveforms? Because they seem like they're acting like both. Answer is they are both. One photon or 1 electron can act like it's just moving between 2 slits and then hitting a wall, or it can act like it's a particle and it just went through one and then it went splat like a paintball hitting the wall. And so I'm picking that one experiment, the most classical, elegant experiment in all of science, the double slit experiment. And I'm not going to go into the details, but the point is the observer makes a difference in the outcome of whether that particle acts like a particle or it acts like a wave, and it really is both. So then the big question is, what's going on? And that's why I mentioned the hippies who saved physics, because they're the ones that really, they said, let's not just shut up and calculate what is going on. How can we interpret this? And then we've got dozens of ways to interpret it, which we're not going to get into, but it's very interesting. And it's very important, actually, because that classical experiment of observing, the way that the observer chooses to look at the experiment to determine, is this a particle or is it a wave? That very choice of how to observe affects the outcome. And this is a huge tie-in with the way spirituality and quantum physics might be said to go hand in hand.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so how does that link and how does it go hand in hand? that
Yes.
observer, and basically what we create and how we look at things, and how, if us as being in the position of an observer, how does that link together with the spirituality?
This gets into those interpretations, and now we get into an area where up until now, there's pretty much agreement, and everyone's going to agree. Even if they don't like what I'm doing with it, they'll say, well, that was true. Now, as soon as you start picking which interpretation you like, of course, there will be arguments, and that's good for science. Arguments are good to have conversation, to say that the idea that you make an observation and you collapse the wave function, that is an interpretation. So that would be the Copenhagen interpretation. And so to say that would be to adopt that perspective. I think there's something to that. It does seem to me that the reality works that way. That, in other words, I can be in a good mood and things seem to go really well. And so I'm collapsing wave functions that are matching the good mood I'm in. If you're in love, people have better luck. If you're pregnant, people are glowing, they're radiant, they have more energy. We know these things, we've seen it. And then we witness for ourselves our own little scientific experiments. What is this connection between consciousness and physics, and this is where we can see some of how that observation seems to absolutely change things. There are a couple of other interpretations I also love, and that would be the multiverse, where Hugh Everett III, he said what's happening with quantum physics can be explained with many worlds, that there are many possible worlds, many possible realities. And I like a sort of a hybrid between that and collapsing the wave function. I know you're not supposed to put these together. It's like you should be a purist and only eat Chinese food and don't blend it with something else. But it's kind of fun when you think, well, maybe there's something else. Maybe there are ways to complement these theories and bring them together. So I can't say for sure what's going on, but it looks to me like there are many possible realities, and we do choose between them.
Yeah. And how does that affect the results that we create? So you were talking about if we are in a good mood or if we are in love, we seem to have better luck. What's the energy? What's happening with the energy then, depending on either how we look at things or, whatever perspective that we take? How does that affect the results that we are creating or maybe attracting the energy into our life?
Yeah, there are, this gets also controversial, but I'm just being honest. So people come away from this talk, and I want you to know here are the controversial parts. But let's quote John Archibald Wheeler, who came up with the idea of the participatory universe, taking that collapse of the wave function and going a little further with it. So what he did is he noticed that we are thinking something or observing something, and we get a result. He was noticing that. He's like noticing you can ask the universe a question, you can get an answer. You can ask nature a question, you can get an answer. And Henry Stapp is a living physicist who I personally know, and he's in the line of thinking of this John Archibald Wheeler idea of the participatory universe. So this is one way that can work. How does it work? And again, I'm going to go a little beyond what Henry Stapp would say and what John Archibald Wheeler ever wanted to have people bringing these ideas together. But to me, they go together, because to me, it's very clear that the way we're participating, we are energy beings. Me as an energy being, the energy field around my heart is measurable. You can actually witness that's an energy field, and it's undisputable. And so you can then do experiments to determine someone whose energy field is expansive can have better what you call luck, or better intuition, or better entanglement with outcomes, and actually get better results. So these are the kind of experiments done by Institute of Noetic Sciences and HeartMath Institute, both in California. So those kinds of research projects are showing clearly there's a connection with the energy that we have and our ability to have mind-matter interaction results.
And because many of my clients, the vast majority, I would say, are thinkers, thinking. And once again, it's the logical mind, are the thoughts that are very often the decision center. So how do thoughts go into it? Because obviously thoughts are energy as well. And then thinking what we're thinking and how we're feeling, or what we're feeling, is obviously getting out there into the energy the field around us, and it's for sure affecting what we are kind of attracting to ourselves. So we often talk about how important it is to know what we are thinking, or in a talk or in a chat, because it influences the results. So can you talk a little bit about the power of the thoughts from this perspective?
Yes, thoughts are very important, and they, as you say, there's a lot to them. So just to start becoming self-aware is the first step to recognize that, first of all, we are not our thoughts, we are not our feelings. And this is, you might think, well, that's obvious, but it's there's a great
Oh, I
book.
don't think it's obvious to many people.
It's not.
No.
No, there's a book I recommend for anybody. It's Experience of oh, wait a minute, that's not the right book. I'll think of it in a minute. But it's
I love
oh,
your
it's Michael Singer. That's it.
Mhm.
He wrote a book about and there's a horse running on the cover, and I'll
Untethered
think of it.
Soul.
Um,
Untethered Soul.
yes, Untethered Soul.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so that book, as you know, it's powerful. To read it is to go through a meditation process and to start experiencing this thing I just said, that we are not our thoughts, we are not our feelings. This is a very important first step to recognize, to start getting a different relationship with thoughts, so that then when they come in, you can recognize like what this thought is. You can bring it into consciousness, and you can converse with it. You can have a conversation. And if you practice things like martial arts, which I do, I'm getting back into that now. I had a little hiatus, a little break, due to life things that happened. Let's not go into that. But anyway, I'm getting
Long
back.
COVID for everybody.
Yes,
Yeah, I went
yes.
through long COVID,
I
18
didn't know if you
months.
wanted to go. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, I'm getting back into my martial arts. And what we notice with martial arts is that there's a unification of mind, body, and spirit. And you start becoming simultaneously able to hyper focus with your rational, left brain logic, that rational analytical mind. But you also simultaneously are working with the intuition, noticing to move a certain way fluidly, easily, almost like you're there before anything happens, and to be that much in tune with your surroundings. And so there are different ways to meditate. It could be Tai Chi or Aikido or something like that. That's very gentle. Or I do Kuksul Wan, which is another martial art. It's from Korea. It doesn't really matter what works best for you, but if you pick something, even yoga can be powerful. So just picking something that you can do with your body as a form of meditation in combination with this book, I highly recommend Untethered Soul, because then you can start to recognize how to start paying attention to these thoughts that are coming through and where they are coming through. You can notice it in your body. Are you feeling it in your heart, in your gut, and so forth? And I have a book about this called Aura Advantage, which is all about reading energy in oneself. So it's a very good way to get in tune with your intuition from the energy side.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So once again, just to kind of bring this a little bit together. So the thoughts are so important because they really do go out there into our field, and they are attracting everything that we get back. As simple as that. It's like if we keep talking rubbish to ourselves, or if we keep expecting things to go wrong, or whatever that's in it, or if we expect things to go right, it really influences the outcomes that we are actually creating to ourselves. And then it's obviously not only about the thoughts, then we are connecting with our heart, because heart is such a huge, and once again, another neurocenter basically in our body, and decision center, and then with our bodies and intuition. And this is just, then we are basically going into this beautiful whole system of functioning instead of just going from this logical mind. And I think the message is spreading more and more and more, and I feel it's so important just to keep really talking about this, so that people can start practicing, as you say, through meditation, through being playful with this. This is not about matter of life and death, but it's just, okay, try this, a little thing, so you see how you feel, what results does it bring. But really just started connecting with our whole bodies and systems and all that energy, because we are such powerful beings.
Much more than we realize. And that rapport that we are capable of feeling with one another, with nature, with even projects, that rapport, that love, that entanglement, that connection, it has the power to eliminate noise. And noise would be that chaos, that thing where things are going wrong, where you think there's going to be a problem. There won't be problems when you have that rapport, that entanglement, that love. And you've seen it. We've all seen that with our best friends, with a beloved family pet, with something where you just felt like that was the luckiest day of my life. Think back on that and notice the rapport, the entanglement, the love that you were feeling. if you live that way, if you choose to live that way, which we have that choice, we have the power then to start living this experience of, it feels like heaven on earth. It feels like things happen that look like they're out of a fairy tale. They look like, how did that even happen?
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy good luck. How did that just happen?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I can really confirm this from my own life, just opening up to that love instead of fear, or opening that heart, working with my body, doing this a lot of somatic work, and working with people like you and my other spiritual coach, and just really opening up to experimenting with other things is just bringing very different results, and the way of living, of how happy I am with life, of how I can experience life, really the quality of life, the experience, instead of being in that fear of something, constantly expecting something, constantly going wrong. And maybe this is a big distinction as well for the audience, that we can act in our lives from two places, and that would be from the place of love or from the place of fear. Right. And
Right.
it feels a little bit like, what are you talking about? If I'm upset or somebody's upsetting me, how can I come and act from the place of love? But that's that choice that makes really all the difference. Could you talk a little bit into love and
Yes.
what power does love? And we're not talking here romantic love. We're talking really,
No,
yeah.
it makes such a huge difference. It's I've seen this so many times in the business world when I was working there, just seeing that some of the managers that were most difficult for people to work with. I'll just tell you a short story. We had come to a staff meeting in the morning, and there were 12 of us there talking. We each were managers. We had our own staff, but we were the managers gathered together. And people were comparing ailments. It turned out just about everyone had a stomach ache, and they like, you too, like me too. Like, when did it start? Just before, like last night, I couldn't sleep, and then they started noticing that the common factor was our boss who hadn't shown up yet. And this is very interesting because well, I'll make the story short, but it was one of those things like, this is crazy. Everybody in the room just looked at me like, you have to, they picked me, you need to talk to human resources. At the time, I thought, why are they picking on me? But then I realized I've had many years to look back on this, and it seems like I was able to go from that place of fear to love. And they felt like, you're going to succeed, you go to human resources. So then I went to human resources to bring this news. Well, 12 of us managers are noticing we're getting ulcers, we're getting migraines, we're not sleeping, we're feeling sick, and the common denominator appears to be our boss. And I told human resources, and I thought, now I've done my job. And then, of course, human resources told me, now you will tell your boss. I know. And I'm like, what? And again, I realized, okay, same thing happened again. They're thinking, I mean, I don't think they're taking the easy way out. Maybe it looked that way, but they were thinking, you're the perfect one, you know her. And more than that, they're looking at me like I'm coming from love, not fear. And when I thought, oh, great, this is gonna, well, I thought, well, at least I told human resources, when I lose my job, they will help me find something new. I'll do the right thing. Oh, brother. So then I went and I talked to my boss, and it was so interesting because the whole thing of fear and love went all the way to the top at that point. And as I was talking with her, I felt like she seemed so human to me in a very different way than she'd ever seen before. And I felt like I had that rare opportunity to be in that place of love, to deliver what could be a horrific message. Your entire staff is getting physical complaints. They're all getting sick they're getting physically ill because of the stress in our department. And but I'm sharing it with her from love, not fear, giving her the chance also to come out of the fear that was driving her to create the whole pattern. That to me is one of the best experiences I ever had. I didn't know what was happening when I got caught up in it, but that's what I learned from it. It's like this powerful. So you're right. And then the trick is, how do we recognize it in ourselves before someone brings it to our attention? And now everybody knows. It's like, oh God, So yeah, you can affect other people this way too. As a parent, as a manager, absolutely. Even just a team player. The more that we make that choice to be in love instead of fear, you'll be embracing these opportunities of synchronicity, and it feels like magic. It feels like things just going right out of nowhere. That will happen.
And it's beautiful to realize that it's actually, we are the cause of that outcome. We are the cause, because the example that you just mentioned is so, I think, so common in corporate world. Like, you know, there is so much
Yes.
toxicity with bosses, and I think we've all had those kind of bosses when you're like the whole team is sick or the whole team is scared of them or whatever.
Yes.
And then, of course, what is the normal reaction in those situations is to kind of retract and go into that kind of place of fear, and that only makes things worse. But if we do come from the place of love and from the place of seeing that other person as a human being as well, and they go through their own shit, basically,
Yes.
well, on their side. And that's why they are behaving very often in the way that they behave, because they are coming from the place of fear. So
Yes.
coming from the place of love and addressing it, it just produces a different outcome. So really, we are the creators of everything that we create. That's basically what it is. Before we go, like, I'm just conscious of time, but I want to touch on one other thing, and that is money. Money is a big thing in the world.
Yes.
And one of your 6 best-selling books is High Energy Money. Yes. We talk about how we create money and the relationship with money. And I have done a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and we spoke about money. And money is such a big, huge topic, such a taboo, particularly at the moment as well, with, you know, the economics and inflation and everything. People are scared about money, creating money, lack of money, and all that stuff. Could you tell us about your relationship with money and how you see us creating more money, maybe, or, you know, having a better relationship with money, so that we do not come from the place of lack, but from the place of abundance when it comes to money?
Well, it's very similar to the story I just told about my department boss. And some of us inadvertently have a very scary relationship with money. Somehow we put it in that position where I'd put my boss, like she's terrifying and she's making us all sick and she's scaring us. And we do that to money. We give it this power. We instead of having that loving relationship with money, feeling like, come over here, you know, let's get a hug. You know, instead of feeling like that about your bank account, your pocketbook, just money everywhere it is, in your investments, your salary, every source of money. When you realize that entire connection, that world of prosperity, you can have a relationship with it. You can feel a complete absence of fear is what's possible. And so really, that's, in a nutshell, that's what the book's really all about. It doesn't say that, but that's what it's doing. And in the book, I'm just going through some of the beliefs that we have that are very subconscious. And we can start noticing which ones we've got, like money is the root of all evil. We've heard people say that. You don't need to believe that. No one needs to believe that. It doesn't make any sense. You know, why target money for such bad treatment? Why give it such a bad, why does it need to, this is ridiculous. So money doesn't need to be that. And so if you flip these beliefs, which might trigger you, you might feel, if you'll know it triggers you if you feel tense when you hear it. When you hear it, you go, you know, and the shoulders go up. If you see that or feel it, like, oops, or if you feel like sick to your stomach or any of these problems in your body, then you know that's one for me to flip around to a positive affirmation. So I'm just giving away the heart and soul of the High Energy Money book. It's really about that. Yeah. But of course, it shares some amazing, miraculous sounding firsthand reports of things that really did happen. I'm saying it that way because people might think these are crazy stories. Like, how can money just land in your wallet? How can you pull a dollar bill out of your wallet? Well, it's happened. I've also had money show up in my bank account. I do have an MBA. I know how to do forensic accounting. I've literally seen money just show up out of nowhere, like thousands of dollars. So if that can happen, anything can happen. And it all starts with this going from the fear and the clenching and the tightness and the contraction and feeling nervous and scared, and to just feeling like, hey, it's all good, and just so much love.
Yeah, I love it. Every time I have a session with you and I walk out of the session, I always feel like anything's possible. Like, seriously, anything's possible. But for everybody who is interested in money, as I said, Cynthia is an author of 6 best-selling books. High Energy Money is one of them. And here what we are talking about is touching a little bit on another topic that you really are huge on, and that's reality shifting. Reality quantum jumping, and also you are a founder of Mandela Effect Conference. So these are all big things. I think we could have another conversation around this because we are running out of time in here, but there is just so much into Cynthia's work, and I really want to invite all of you if you are interested in how to create better life through place of love, plus connected with scientific research and really measurable researches of how our body, how our energy works, then really please go and follow Cynthia and all the work that she does. Her website is realityshifters.com. I will put it into the post. There is so much information in there. So, well, it's 20 years of information in there, isn't it?
Yeah, a little more than 20 years. So
I think you must be the first person with a website, seriously.
Well, it is pretty, it goes back quite a ways. I think you're right, because it was before I got Reality Shifters, it was over on a different website as I learned to put a website together. Yeah, it's pretty old. The dawn of the internet.
Yeah, but it's all these kind of reports on reality shifting, on quantum jumps, on what is really happening maybe when it comes to the universe, the multiverse, divine. So all that kind of juicy, really beautiful stuff, you will find all of it in there. Well, Cynthia, thank you so very much. Like, we could be talking for days and days and days. But is there anything else that you would like to leave the audience with? Is there anything that you would like to?
We didn't get into it, but please just ask the question, how good can it get?
Sorry,
that would be my, I would just like people to, I would just want to say, just put it out there, play with it. It's a good question. We live in a participatory universe. When you ask that question, you can live the answer. And then it doesn't matter if it's a bad day, a good day, whatever. Ask it anyway. Whatever's happening, ask.
So once again, the question is,
how good can it get?
Yeah, that's Cynthia's question. That's what I wake up every morning to, is like, how good can today get? And that's just going with that feeling, going with that gut, going with that intuition, and just enjoy life, man. It's just, we are here to enjoy life, not to struggle. That's for sure. That's what's happening. Right. Yeah. Cynthia, thank you so very much. I am looking forward. We are having a session later this week. We haven't seen each other for a few weeks, and I'm definitely missing your energy, so I'm looking forward to it. All the best to California. Have a great day, and I will speak to you in a couple of days.
Thank you. Take care.